The 1920s represented an era of change and growth. The decade was one of learning and exploration. Present-day Cisco, Texas has just over 3,000 residents. But in 1927, the city was an oil and gas boomtown, boasting over 15,000 citizens. This was 2 years before the Great Depression. Life was still great. 1927 was a prosperous year for Texas. The banks were flush, which attracted an inevitable criminal element, and robbers were hitting 3 to 4 banks every day because the banks were flowing with cash. Eyewitness Boyce House wrote that this was the most spectacular crime in the history of the Southwest, surpassing any in which Billy the Kid or James Boys had ever figured. This is the Santa Bandit.
What's up, YouTube? It is Kelly from Kelly's Unexplained, and welcome back to my channel. We are on day 3 of 12 Days of Christmas, and today we're going to talk about a true crime case that happened in 1927 in my good state of Texas. Here we go. If you are new to my channel, I cover all kinds of cool stuff. True crime, the paranormal, myths and legends, anything that's unexplained. Don't forget to like all my social media platforms right down below. At the time that this occurred in 1927, this was the largest bank robbery in the history of Texas, and it led to the largest manhunt as well. This all began on December 23rd, 1927, when Marshall Ratliff, Henry Helms, Robert Hill, Louise Davis held up the First National Bank in Cisco, Texas. Ratliff, the kind of ringleader of this, had already been arrested for another bank robbery years before with his brother Lee, but he was pardoned by the governor, Miriam Ferguson. And she was known for pardoning people. She pardoned about 4,000 people in her tenure as governor. It's kind of like Oprah's giveaway. You get a pardon, and you get a pardon, and you get a pardon. So these guys had been planning this. They were in Wichita Falls, decided to do this in Cisco, Texas. So they're in a hotel, they're planning this, they're talking about it, and they're like, let's get our plan together, guys. This is going to be amazing. We're going to be stars, we're going to be rich. So Helms and Hill were friends of Marshall, and they were kind of thugs and bank robbers themselves, this petty crimes. And Louis Davis was really good with safes. So they pulled him in and like, hey guys, we got this. So these 4 guys steal a car in Wichita Falls and they drive down to Cisco, Texas. Now, during this time period in Texas, there was a $5,000 reward for killing a bank robber or shooting them. So if you were in a bank and it was robbed and you shot them and killed them, you get a $5,000 reward. I mean, this is some old school Second Amendment shit. Everyone was packing. Just bring your guns to the bank and protect yourselves, dudes. Because of this $5,000 reward, this robbery turned deadly. While they were in Wichita Falls in the hotel planning this, they had borrowed a Santa suit from Mrs. Midge Tellett, who was running the boarding house that they were staying at. It was kind of like a bed and breakfast type thing. And I guess he was feeling festive and was like, hey, can I borrow a Santa suit? She was like, sure. That's not sketchy. So they're in Cisco, Texas. Marshall gets let out a couple of blocks away from the bank. He's in his Santa suit. And as he's walking towards the bank, a bunch of kids on the side of the street were like, oh my gosh, it's Santa. Hey, Santa. And they come running to Santa and he pats them on the head and he gives them a hug and he says, move along, kids. I've got business to do. The other 3 parked the car a couple blocks away. They walk through the back alley and they meet Marshall Ratliff, and the guys are like, dude, where were you at? I got held up by some kids. So all 4 enter, and then shit gets started. Marshall Ratliff enters the bank. The sweet little old lady tellers welcome Santa. Good afternoon, Merry Christmas, Santa. And they think it's cute that he dresses up as Santa. Now, if you did that today, they would push that little button underneath there and the police would be swarming on you. He ignores the sweet old lady, doesn't respond, doesn't say hello, Merry Christmas, whatever. And the other three guys that were behind him draw their guns and start covering up the witnesses, all the people that are standing around with sacks over their heads, tying their hands up and putting them on the side. Marshal Ratliff draws his gun at the tellers. They open up the safe. They start handing him money. He's putting it in the bag. And Mrs. Blassingame and her daughter walk into the bank as it's being held up, and she sees what's going on. She sends her daughter out the door. The daughter runs to the alley and yells, "The bank is being robbed. The bank is being robbed." And a mob ensues. Marshall has his sack full of money. He's about done. He's ready to leave. Hill, one of his little sidekicks, sees someone out the window. He could see the mob ensuing, and so he opens fire at the citizens outside the bank because he's getting paranoid, and he just starts shooting. Being that the citizens outside are packing themselves, this huge shootout ensues between citizens on the outside of the bank and the four guys on the inside of the bank. Now, Marshall starts to let some of the people out, but he does take two hostages. The chief of police and a deputy arrive soon after the shootout, and they begin shooting as well. However, they get shot and die of their gunshot wounds, so they did not make it through this shootout. Ratliff and Davis were also shot, and Davis was mortally wounded, though he does not die right away. All four men, knowing that the shit's about to get crazy, nothing's going right, they run out the back door to their getaway car, and they realize their car was out of gas. So they did not put gas in the car, in their getaway car, before they decided to rob the bank. I mean, these dudes were some smart cookies for sure. They start to leave with the little gas that they have in their car, and they realize one of their tires is flat from one of the stray bullets from the shootout. So they have a little bit of money. Their getaway car is out of gas. One of their tires is flat. I think you can guess how this is going to go. They drive for a couple of miles trying to get out of town, being pursued by the mob, and they try to switch cars. So they drive to another car, and Davis is bleeding profusely. He's mortally wounded. He's not dead yet, but he's not going to make it much longer. So they leave him in the car, the getaway car that has no gas and the tire is flat. And the other three take off into another car that they stole, not realizing that Davis has the money. He has the bag of money, and they left him in the car bleeding to death. So they left the money. In the bag of money was $12,400 and about $150 in like non-negotiables. I'm not really sure what that is. I'm going to look that up. The mob found Davis dying in the car with all the money. The money was returned to the bank. Davis was transported to the Fort Worth hospital where he died soon after. So the next 3 days, the three guys were on the run being pursued by the cops. This angry mob who was chasing them. Several times they kind of caught up with them, had a small little shootout. They escaped, got away. They were kind of hiding out from place to place to place, and they had not eaten in 3 days, and things were not looking good. At one point, a Texas Ranger named Cy Bradford was able to catch up with them, and there was a small little shootout between him and the three guys in the car. They managed to escape the car, run into the woods, but they had several gunshot wounds. There was a huge manhunt. They brought in dogs and airplanes, and they finally captured them. And once they captured them, they were skinny, they were wounded, they had not eaten in 3 days, they were exhausted, and sent to jail. Hill pleaded guilty to armed robbery, and he was sentenced to 99 years in prison. He actually escaped prison 3 times, but was recaptured all 3 times and brought back. 1940, he was released from prison, and he changed his name. He got married. He kind of lived a productive life after this and pretended like that never happened. So he was just like, oh, that was in the past. Let the past be in the past. Helms, on the other hand, was the one who was responsible for shooting the two officers that died, the chief and the deputy back at the bank when they had the shootout there and they died on the premises. He tried to plead the insanity argument and that didn't work and he was executed. Last one, Marshall Ratliff, tried to escape jail. He was still alive. He was still in jail. He had not been executed yet. He tried to escape. He mortally wounded one of the jailers on his attempt to escape. He did not successfully escape. However, there were a lot of people very upset that he had mortally wounded an officer inside the jail trying to leave. So a mob ensued. And it grew to like several thousand people were outside the jail demanding for his release. And the jailer said, no, we can't let him out to you. Well, they rushed into the jail and grabbed Marshall Ratliff. They were successful in dragging him out. They dragged him to a light pole and tried to hang him. This mob of several thousand people. The rope broke. They tried to hang him again. And this time it was successful. As far as the lynching goes, those several thousand people that drug him out of the jail and hung him on the side of the street, none of them were prosecuted. They got away with it. You know, back in those days, they just took matters into their own hands. They didn't wait for the system. That bank in Cisco, Texas, still stands today, although it obviously looks different. It's been renovated. It's been upgraded since 1927, hopefully. Inside the lobby, you can see like newspaper clippings. They've got them framed and hung up, and it's kind of like a little mini museum on one of the walls of this famous bank robbery. This sounds like a movie. Has this been created into a movie? If not, this would be a good one. Let me know in the comments what you think about this case. I know it's super crazy. I mean, times have changed for sure. I don't know. So that is my story of the real life bad Santa, the Santa Claus Bank Robbery of 1927. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you on day 3 of my 12 days of Christmas. Make sure that you're with me on day 4. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this video if you liked it. Love you guys. Bye.